Financial institutions can't match with the data analysis, infrastructure, services, and the location mapping that big techs have. But the question is, big techs are offering a doorstep service from grocery to furniture. But what if customers prefer big techs over the financial institutions for customer service? How the relationship will be between the FIAs and the big techs in the future? This session will highlight the foreseen future of the FIAs and big techs, and this will be moderated by Amol Ete, ET editor, BFSI, and he's connecting with us online to lead this further.
Hello and welcome to ETBFSR Converge. I'm going to talk about big techs, and I have with me Devi Mohan, the co-founder and CEO of Bunmark and a fintech influencer from UK. Devi, welcome on the show.
Thank you so much, Amal.
Devi, the topic for this fireside chat is why financial institutions will share their lunch with big techs. We have been talking about whether the big techs will silo the banks and the financial institutions, or the financial institutions will share their lunch with the big techs, because big techs are everywhere, and in fact they are offering much better service than many financial institutions who are operating since decades. Now the question I would like to ask you is how far fintechs will go, specifically in terms of financial institutions and offering the financial services. What kind of scope do you see for big techs in the financial services sector?
I think you're absolutely right in saying that the conversation around fintech and big techs working together and working with the banks themselves, it's actually come to a peak, I feel, in 2019 and 2020. So despite all of the economic challenges we are seeing now in 2020, that conversation is still going on. And I think there are two main reasons why I believe there is interest in big techs from the point of view of fintech. The first reason, which is the most important thing I feel, is the fact that it all revolves around data. So big techs, anyone from Facebook to WhatsApp to Google to Amazon, they have this huge advantage that they're sitting on huge amounts of customer data. And that is a very, very powerful notion for fintechs, especially startups who are starting out in the space, and also financial institutions who are not usually famous in terms of going out and getting customer loyalty done in a very easy manner. So that data is actually quite precious in the financial services segment. This is also important because the verticals that fintechs or tech companies are operating in is now not just finance. So they do work closely with insurance, and then airlines and retail and healthcare. All of this is converging now in the last couple of years. And that is another reason why that data is more powerful than ever before. Now, the second reason I think big techs is a very interesting topic for us in the fintech world is the fact that the customer acquisition cost is actually quite low. And this is something I talk about all the time, because if you advise startups, and I work closely advising several startups, and one of the biggest challenges we face is keeping the customer acquisition costs down as funding comes in. Now, how do we keep this customer acquisition low? And every year it's going up, and with every stage of the startup, it's going up. And one of the best ways to do that is in partnership with big techs, who already have a big customer base available to them. So from a startup point of view, again, this is super valuable. Now, going back to the question you asked around why would financial institutions and large banks want to partner and want to do with this, again, that stems from the interest of keeping customers coming to them, whether it's millennials and students in Generation Z or the new group of customers, keeping the existing customers loyal, the retention, that's another big challenge for the banks. But beyond all of that, they're looking for a completely new model of working where the banks focus on their strengths, be it payments or lending or creation of products. And then the customer facing side is left to fintechs or big techs. So that is the future I see with the way banks are going in terms of their strategy.
Very, very interesting, Devi, very insightful in fact. But let me, try to drill you more and try to understand more. The whole question is, Initially, it started with fintechs. Fintechs will swallow the banks. Then fintechs end up collaborating with the banks. Now they're saying that big techs will swallow the banks. Big techs will eat the lunch of the financial institutions. I mean, are the big techs really hungry? I know the financial institutions have lots of money to sponsor the lunch of the big techs, but what is happening?
Yeah, I don't believe that anyone is going to eat anyone for lunch here. We spoke, I mean, people did speak about fintechs eating the lunch of banks 5 years ago, but it didn't really happen. What I think will happen is a collaboration model where they find their own strengths and work with each other. So, as an example, we have heard of the launch of a new consumer bank in partnership with Google and Citibank. Now, Citibank is a well-established bank. Why do they have won this partnership with Google as the customer-facing engine? Now, this is a new entity they're creating with the whole idea that the look and feel, the customer experience is different. Google does the customer acquisition, and Citibank focuses on their strength, which is the products that they have. And this has already been done by Apple as well. Several credit unions are partnering in the US with big techs. In the UK, not so much, but in Latin America and India and Asia, some parts of Asia, you find a lot of partnerships happening in this way. So the strength of the bank is not customer facing stuff anymore. That's kind of gone. The strength is very much the regulation, the knowledge of how to deal with data privacy and security, and the knowledge of the products itself. And then the big techs will be the front end. So I don't think banks are going to die off, and banks are not going to be destroyed by either big techs or fintechs. But I think it will be a model where everybody finds their own strengths and work with each other. I don't think any group is going to be destroyed fully. But over time, I'm sure it will become more invisible. We wouldn't know who is giving us the product. It's probably a Google branded product or a Citibank branded product, but it could be offered by anybody.
Very well said. Yes, obviously, I mean, the banks may not die. Obviously, the role of model, the business models, and the way they function will absolutely change. In fact, it has changed dramatically, and it may change further. But when we speak about the partnerships and collaborations, my question to you, Devi, is what kind of partnerships or collaborations that you see going to happen with the big techs and the financial institutions? Obviously, the partnerships and collaborations between the big techs and financial institutions in India is almost at a minimal level, but I'm sure it's happening globally. So if you could give us some case study or share your experience of whether it's happening in UK or America or some other countries, would be really appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest forms of collaboration between big techs and banks is in the form of infrastructure. So
Right.
the best example of that is Amazon, right? And web services. So a lot of the cloud-based infrastructure used in banks today is actually coming from big techs.
Right.
And this is a perspective we don't normally think about because it's not consumer facing.
Yes.
The other kind of partnership that you see in the UK is in terms of the platform. So the infrastructure is the bottommost layer, and then comes the platform. So this platform, for example, a marketplace platform, will have several players offering products on the same marketplace or platform, which the bank then offers to their customers or clients. So that is another model that's working very well in the UK. And even if you look at challenger banks, which are kind of smaller than the traditional FIs we're talking about, people like Starling Bank have a really good marketplace with more than 27 partners, I believe, last I heard. And this model of building that platform in partnership with big techs is very popular in the UK. Now, the next layer on top of that is the customer experience layer that we kind of talk normally when we talk about big techs coming into banking. And in the UK, I don't know of any examples of banks doing that. But in the US, like I said, Citibank has done it, Goldman Sachs has done it in the US. And also, one of the biggest markets who have actually done that customer-facing layer done by big techs is Brazil. So Brazil has had WhatsApp launch their own bank, and they've had Facebook work in partnership with banks. So It's an interesting conversation in terms of the controversies around here, because a lot of the banks have gone to the regulator asking for more regulation around this, but it seems to be one of the biggest markets that big techs are going after in terms of Latin America and the US, more so than Europe and Asia is what I see so far.
What are the major benefits that the big techs have? Obviously, when you look at the customers, bank has a huge customer base, and banks has the trust of the customers. But in terms of service, nobody can compete with the big techs, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Google or Facebook or Apple. Nobody can compete with them. The kinds of service they're offering. So will that be a big advantage for the big techs going ahead? And where will actually the bank fall in terms of what you can say having a merit in terms of collaborations and partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, they have this huge advantage of volumes and having a customer base and having an infrastructure to support that huge billions of customers that they have, which banks may not necessarily have in place. But the reason I think people still go to banks is because of trust. So
Right.
trust is a big factor in financial services, not in retail so much, not in airlines as much, but in healthcare and financial services, these two verticals, the tech companies always partner with banks or the healthcare company because the trust is always higher there. And that is the reason we haven't seen fintechs kill the banks or big techs kill the banks, because there is an element of banks existing for hundreds of years. Your parents, your grandparents, and several generations are banked with the same company. That sentiment is very, very high, especially in the UK. Now, this varies country to country. There are countries where people don't trust banks at all. And especially in some countries in Africa and Asia, the trust for banks is much lower than the trust for WhatsApp. But in the UK, in Germany, in Spain, in several parts of Americas, you find that the trust for banks is very, very high. So that is the reason they still exist and they still deal with clients. And one of the interesting surveys, again, you can look it up, has been done on Generation Z. These are the people who were born after 2000.
Right.
And this is an interesting age group we always watch as researchers, because that's the new market, not millennials. They're now about 40 years old, but the new target market for all of these guys is Generation Z. There was a survey done recently on what Generation Z thinks, and this group also trusts banks more than WhatsApp or Facebook. So we don't see that changing with the generational behavior. So I think that is one of the biggest advantages that banks have. The fact that they know regulation, they're being regulated, that is a huge advantage in favor of banks. They're much less in failures, much less likely to fail than a tech company.
Very, very important thoughts, Devi. But when we speak specifically about the regulations, and allow me to ask, two, three important thoughts on the regulations. Big techs are not regulated the way the banks are regulated, and that is the major difference. That is why when customers feel that they are protected from the banks. But look at the number of the customers that the big tech have, and what they don't have only is the financial services right now, for which they are partnering with the banks or something like that. But going ahead, by any chance, if big techs get into the financial services and they start offering, don't you think that the big techs will have much bigger upper hand than the banks? Because the number of the customers and the kinds of service which the big techs have provided to the users and the customers is much better than the banking services.
No, it is. It is better today. But then the question from me would be, would it be better 5 years down the line as well?
Right.
I mean, banks are constantly changing in terms of the customer experience as well. Now, the other thing that I've also noticed in my research is people don't expect the same customer experience from banks as you would expect from Google. So Google was launched in 1990s. I mean, it's been around for a long, long time today. And the interface we have from Google has not come into banking until 20 almost. So it's not that people are expecting, and I'm taking the position of devil's advocate here, because we need to be aware of the strengths of a bank as well when you work in fintech. And I genuinely believe that banks are trying to improve their own customer experience, and in partnership with people, they are launching better and better customer-facing apps. So a great example, I'm sure all of us know, is Simple. the app acquired by BBVA Bank. And these kind of banks called neobanks provide a good front end for the customers to sign on and for onboarding, but the back end and the regulation is handled by BBVA or the traditional bank. Now, this is a very, very successful and popular model today because the front end is done really well, as you say, by fintechs and big techs, but the back end is still done better by banks. And that's what we see today. So the front end can change. I mean, it probably takes another year for the banks to have good front ends, or they can acquire it or buy it or develop it. But the whole question is, who is the most trustworthy party in this ecosystem? And that's where I think customers will still go to.
What is your sense, by any chance, if big techs enter into the financial services segment, what could be the challenges? Will regulators also face challenge regulating all these big giants? Will big techs also face challenges in offering and getting regulated in terms of the financial services? Because right now they can build the UI they want, they can provide the UX they want, but when they get into the regulatory businesses, they will have to listen to regulators as well. How do you see that scenario?
I think that is going to play again in favor of banks a bit, I think, because big techs, first of all, they don't like to be regulated.
Okay.
And this is a conversation I have with Facebook and Amazon and the executives there all the time. The moment they can look at a market entry into a new place, they have no interest changing their product and the nature of their business and the customer acquisition models in favor of the regulatory model of that country. So they don't want to be regulated. So that is the reason you don't see anybody launching full-fledged banks now. And it's purely because of that lack of interest in being regulated. Now, the second reason I think that's going to be a problem is, again, we look at Brazil, because I look at Brazil as a great example because they've already launched a bank based on WhatsApp. Completely new bank, non-licensed, I think partially licensed, but non-regulated. And that bank is coming under a lot of attack now because all of the big banks, including Itaú, have gone to the regulator and asked for this bank to be regulated fully as well. Now, this is a worry. Again, this is a threat of competition, threat of taking customers away. I mean, there are billions of people on WhatsApp already. So competing with that is super hard if they're not regulated at all. And my feeling is Brazil will introduce new regulation to deal with these kind of big tech-based banks as well. Now, this is a great case study for India as well, because India is also considering a lot of financial models around WhatsApp and Facebook, which are the largest social media platforms in India. Again, billions of people in there. And quite easy for WhatsApp to launch new payment products, which is already happening through mobile wallets and virtual wallets and all of that. But the moment someone launches a full-fledged bank, which is not yet available in India as an option, we are going to start seeing a completely different reaction from the banks, I feel. And that is why the regulators are working very, very closely with both WhatsApp and banks in India to come up with the right balance of approach. And I am quite sure that it will happen in the next couple of years in terms of a WhatsApp bank. But the nature of what it will look like and how it's regulated will be determined by the regulator working closely with the banks. So that's the difference we're going to see in India.
Okay, very, very interesting, Devi. Thanks for sharing that Brazil, case study. That's very attractive and very meaningful. Since you mentioned about India, I will take my last question specifically about Indian market. You are operating from UK, and obviously all the foreigners specifically working in the financial innovation, specifically from UK, USA, and Europe, are looking at India as one of the potential market. Since you're talking about big techs, what kind of opportunities do you see for big techs in India? Because India still is a with a low penetration, not only in the banking but overall financial, institutions type and financial sector, whether it's insurance, whether it's mutual fund, or whether it's stock market. The penetration is really low, and that is also one of the way or one of the aspect for which the big techs wants to enter into India. So, what kind of opportunities do you see for big techs in India?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting market. I mean, I look at Europe all the time, but in comparison, India is such a fascinating market. I think the penetration is low, but I wouldn't call it a problem because financial inclusion doesn't necessarily mean that you have access to a bank. It can come in different forms. And one of the best ways to do inclusion is through digital means, like having a basic mobile phone. And you find that in several parts of the country already, you know, the fishermen, for example, create marketplaces, and farmers create marketplaces around basic, very basic phones, which the penetration is very high. So in India, I think the future will be led by mobile phones and the penetration around it and the products around it. So it's not a problem. It's not like everyone needs to have a bank account to be able to transact products. Now, where big tech can play a role is, for example, in lending. Lending market in India is one of the largest in the world today. And the regular lending is quite well penetrated, but the small business lending, the micro lending, the student lending, all of these are areas that are growing really, really fast. And it's going to be one of the largest markets in the world. So people like Amazon and Facebook who offer lending products will have a very important role to play, I think, in capturing that small and micro lending market. The other big area I kind of see, again, like I said, it doesn't have to be new banks at all. I don't see India having more banks coming on, but I kind of see more use of technology in reaching out to rural population, reaching out to all the genders and age groups and all types of businesses. And I think that's where it's important. So one of the biggest changes that we're going to see in India is also personalization. So not just offering one common product across the spectrum of financial services, but actually offering things very much around the sector you're in, the nature of your business, the size of your business, the number of employees, and that kind of personalization will happen thanks to some of the technologies available today with big techs. And again, like I said, WhatsApp bank-based banking, I think is just going to happen anytime now. And when that happens, I think that's going to change the nature of banking overall as well. The good news is the smartphone growth is very high in India as well. So a lot of the big techs have a role to play, I'm sure, in the future. And I have to caution everyone around against the negatives of this as well, in that we need to make sure the stability of financial services is not affected. So that too many players coming in is not a good idea. So having the right kind of regulation, the balance between innovation and regulation, and ensuring stability of the financial services sector should be absolutely top of mind. And also facts like cyber attacks and data privacy and data consent. Those are topics that banks very much are aware of, but I think big tech still need to, they're more vulnerable to attacks, and they're more vulnerable to lack of data consent. So I think that's another area that I see a lot of focus that needs to come in. But once these two issues are solved, I think there's a huge market available in India for the taking. So it'll be quite fascinating the next couple of years.
Very well said, Devi. Very, very, very interesting. Yes, an Indian market is very fascinating, no doubt about it. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and thank you so much for taking part into the conversation. Thank you so much for sharing remarkable insights on ETBFSI Converge. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much. You must have surely find the answer to if they are sharing the lunch or not. So we encourage the audience to continue to engage with us on social media using the hashtag ETBFSI Converge, and keep interacting with us using the comment box to clear any doubt with our speakers and team of experts. Stay with us.